about supply chain sustainability in the industry. So just for a quick run on our session this morning, anyone that has got questions, please make sure that you send them through on the chat box. I will be checking on all the social media platforms to see which questions are coming our way. And I will ensure that Lorraine is able to answer those key questions that you are asking with regards to sustainability. Now, let's get back to the topic. And who do we have this morning? Like I said, we do have Ms. Lorraine Jenks, who is joining me this morning, and we're discussing anything and everything about sustainability. So let me tell you about who she is. Lorraine, please show your pretty face because I think everyone will want to see you. So Lorraine, very passionate. She's a speaker. She's an African climate reality leader. She's always focusing on sustainable, circular supply chains, greening facilitator, ethical food activist. Guys, I can tell you just about everything about Lorraine. She has been focused in this environment, being an advocate and a change agent, ensuring that we focus on climate change. One of the discussions that a lot of individuals and organizations seem to be forgetting. And she focused on climate change, responsible lifestyle, sustainability, environmental and greening trends for the past 49 years. So this thing of sustainability, guys, is not anything new because you can see that Lorraine has been passionately driving that for the past few years. So she started with that in the 70s, working in the Environment Protection Agency before coming into South Africa. So she has been focusing on organizations, a brainchild of an organization called Hotel Staff. Please check Hotel Staff, guys, in terms of what is happening there. And then there's a sister organization called Green Staff, where there's a database of eco-friendly products. Isn't that what we want around driving sustainability topics, guys? So Lorraine, a special welcome to yourself. And guys, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Lorraine. She's an expert. Like I say, she is passionate around talking about sustainability. Now, before I even get Lorraine to cut and chat to us, what is sustainability? And I mean, so many people, we've been talking about sustainability. So many people have been saying that, sustainability is one of this new thing. We're talking about climate change. I think I'm just giving you a brief of an introduction. We know there's sustainable development goals, and we normally call them SDGs. They were the global goals that has been adopted by the United Nations around 2015 as a call to action to end poverty and protect the planet, and to ensure that by 2030, all the people enjoy prosperity and peace. And we are in the planet. So the question is, how do we really do that? Through those SDGs, there's 17 SDGs that has been integrated, whereby each and every country has to commit to ensure that there is a balance between our social, economic, and environmental sustainability. That being the case, you may ask yourself that, where do we enter as supply chain management? Why am I talking about this? We have to start realizing that supply chain has a bigger contribution in creating such reality, especially being able to meet those 17 SDGs. One of them is around poverty. I spoke around that. One of them is really around ensuring that we have required, reduced inequalities, life on land, climate action, partnership on the goals, clean water and sanitation, gender equality as well, one of the drivers that I love, zero hunger, good health and well-being, and I can go on and on around it, guys. So with that being the case, we will be discussing that and really understanding that where does supply chain really fit around achieving these SDGs. And our topic this morning is around creating the sustainable supply chain, looking at the circular economies. So I'm not an expert in that. I read, I'm very fascinated around the topic. However, we have Lorraine. Lorraine, please, if you can just briefly tell people who you are, why you are here as well, and what you've been driving, because at the end of the day, this discussion is around the planet, the future, and the decisions that we are making today. These are the decisions that will impact our great-grandkids, ourselves as well, when we are more older as well. So what decisions should we be taking as a supply chain community, as organizations, as service providers, to ensure that we work around this SDG. Lorraine, you can proceed. The platform is yours. I will ensure that from my side, any questions that are coming your side, send them through to you. And guys, the last thing that I forgot is that we will be running a couple of polls. So if there's a poll coming your way, please be kind to respond, because we want to understand and to see where your level of understanding is with regards to sustainability. Thank you.
Yeah, Lepo, Rose, thank you for having me here. This has been a 50-year journey. You know, when you get to my age, your CV gets this long. It's not because you're so fantastic, it's just because you're so old. And the reason I'm here is I grew up on a farm, one of those old-fashioned farms where you had everything. You had pigs and cattle and mealies and peaches and tomatoes and chickens and a dairy, and you had everything. And my granny was a widow. She ran it on her own, and that's where I learned where things come from. And it has absolutely amazed me that people don't wonder, when they go and they buy something, don't they wonder where it comes from? And thanks to lockdown, honestly, I think thanks to lockdown, people had time to think, and COP26 had an amazing effect through the media, through the awareness through the media. And generally, the explosion in sustainability is unbelievable after me banging my head against the wall for all these years. To tell you how great it is, I was on a workshop the other day from Brazil, only for architects and designers, that's all. There were 14,000 people on that workshop from around the world on sustainable interior design. That is how people are suddenly, they've always worried about green buildings, but not enough about what actually happens inside. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through a quick presentation, have a look, grab what you need. You certainly won't need to absorb all of it. Some things will jump out at you. Take those. Think about them. There could be a career in that for you. Or give me a ring. I could run a whole workshop for you on a particular aspect of what we're going to discuss today, to you and your church and your school and your company and your neighbors, anybody who will listen. So here we go with the screen share. Is that working nicely, guys? Rose, Lebo, can you see
yes,
that?
Lorraine, this is quite clear. You can still continue. You can continue.
Okie dokes. So that's me with the news. The news is absolutely horrendous. Hide your people's faces if you can, so you can see my screen. So mudslides in Brazil, storms in England, wildfire in North America, drought in Kenya, snowstorms in Canada, floods in Malawi, climate refugees. We haven't begun to see climate refugees, guys. And the effects, I've just spoken to Azerbaijan of all places. I mean, I can't believe it. And I researched what's happening there. Look how big that glacier is. Imagine how much ice that is. It's gone. Which also means all the people downstream, all the farms, don't have water. And the risks to us are these things. These are real people trying to deliver stuff that have been affected by climate change. And that railway line, by the way, is not some hot African country. That's in England. So before I tell you what I actually do the first poll for me, please, Lebo. Let's just see, it's about coffee.
Lorraine, I'm just having a bit of a technical glitch. If you can continue at the moment outside of that call, and then I'll put it up shortly.
Tell you what, don't worry. I'll just tell them what I want you to do in the chat. Everybody who's here, there are 10 of you here. Oh, here you are. No, not that one. In the chat, just tell me where your coffee beans came from. The coffee you had this morning. If you don't know, say, I don't know. In the chat, put where they came from. Local, Kenya, Ethiopia, Peru, wherever. And I'll keep an eye on the chat. You see, KP doesn't know, with a smiley face. Somebody else. Okay, I'm going to leave it to Phil. You should know. Of course you should know. You should care. You should care if it's grown in the shade, if they use slave labor, if they have fair practices, if it's organic. You should know all those things, especially the slave labor side of it. So this is what I do. I speak. Never planned to do this. I'm a teacher. Never even knew you could get paid, not that I get paid, to speak. Then I realized when I was talking, people need to see what I was talking about. And we started building exhibition stands. Absolutely mad. We had no idea what we were doing. Then I ended up consulting after working in the hotel industry for many years. And I tried to get that hotel chain. I worked for the Southern Sun Hotel Group, Soko Sun now, for 15 years, tried to get them to think. In those days, we used to call it green. And then my son said to me, all the stuff you learned here, people want to know, the boutique hotels, even private people want to know why you've chosen the subjects you've chosen. Let's put it on the internet. And we said, what's the internet? That's how long ago it was. And we created hotel stuff. It's just a yellow pages. We don't sell anything. We don't take commission. So if any of you have got a product that anyone could use, it's not only hotels now, it's everybody. It's homes, architects, hospitals, office blocks. Everybody is using hotel stuff like a directory or like a yellow pages. And then the second website that backs onto it's called Green Stuff and only lists the greenest products that we can find. Nothing is 100% green. It's just the best that we can do. So this was me when I did all these. Imagine how many products are used in a hotel. I did the procurement directory for all of them, and it became my mission because it's quite sort of boring job going out to tender, choosing a supplier year after year for 15 years. I started visiting the factories and I started trying to find the greener versions of everything that we used. And as I said, in a moment of madness, we booked 100 square meters at the Hostec show with no money, used my pension fund. And I asked the people on the second website, the suppliers, I said, send me some of your stuff. We're not going to sell it. We're going to display it so people can look, see, touch, and feel what green things or eco-friendly products look like. These are some of the stands. That one on the bottom left was the Decorex. It was magnificent. It was 5 rooms built with those wooden slats. The bottom at the right is a tiny house. Furnished, all of these, furnished from front to back with no plastic and only eco-friendly products. And there they are, no plastic anywhere, even a hybrid car. Some of the renewables to show the daddies. That whole kitchen is in my flat now. Everything in there, FSC wood, organic cleaning chemicals, everything. VOC-free paint, the whole lot. And these are some of the shows we've been at, even BBC Lifestyle, Grand Designs, if you can believe it, at the Dome. So for the young women out there, this is a message for you. This is a motivation for you. I started doing this when I was 69. I'm 79 now. You can start something at any time, and it must be something you're passionate about, something that worries you, something that you think you can change, somewhere where you think you'll be of use and leave a legacy. And in those short 10 years, 22 awards. I mean, I actually can't believe it. I think I have to be honest. Sometimes I think it's just because I'm the only person who does what I do. So climate change, this is a whole 4-day course. Give me a shout and I'll run it for you. People have to understand why. Why do we have to do it? So we used to have a nice warm planet where the sun beat down. Now we've got these horrible greenhouse gases that are pulling a blanket around the earth. And that heat, the extra heat, can't bounce out like it used to. And it's making us warmer every year. So over 400,000 years, look how the carbon dioxide, only in the last 150 years, that is. Since the Industrial Revolution. The other one is global warming, exactly the same, shoots up all of a sudden. And then here, it's always been cold, it's always been hot. This is what Trump doesn't understand. The thing is, it still gets cold. It's just getting hot more often. So these are the causes which we know. It's flying too much, agriculture, surprisingly very bad. Deforestation breaks my heart. Cattle farming is absolutely terrible. Ecocide, eco means life, side means death. So we are killing ourselves. We're actually killing our home. We're committing suicide. That's ecocide, an ordinary wonderful countryside. start farming, monoculture farming, you start losing animals. Eventually, you've got just a few animals and insects left. This is what they call the overuse of products. In 2006, we estimated how much we use in a year of everything. Everything that human beings consume in 1 year, we measured. By 2021, we had used up that allowance of raw materials by the 1st of August. So the rest of the year is in overdraft, stuff that we can never replace. These are all the words that people are sick to death of. All these things around carbon, just let's keep it simple. So that's what I do. This is a whole masterclass that I'll be running this week. If you want to join, just very quickly, sustainability, green, originally green meant when we had the terrible gas energy shortage in the 70s. Sustainability means keep things the way they are. Circular economy is design things so that there's minimum waste, and so that things can stay in the loop and go round and round and round and not be thrown away, used again, given to somebody else. Anything that you can reuse, restructure, redesign, remanufacture, whatever, keep it in use as long as possible, so we save raw materials and we have less waste. Regenerative mostly was for agriculture. They're using the word for everything now, which makes me cross. Regenerative actually means to go somewhere, do something, and when you leave, it must be better off than before you arrived. So with farming, you should actually make the soil and the air and the rivers around there even better than they were when you arrived. But they use it now for, I don't know, for all kinds of stuff where it doesn't apply. Of this list of stuff here, have a look at it, take a photograph of it, give me a shout, I'll send it to you. You need to know what all those things stand for. SDG, Rose mentioned. ESG means environment, social, and governance. This is the big one. I'm telling you, if you haven't met the standards of SDG, people will not invest in your company. It's become a worldwide standard, and people are lying. There's lots of greenwashing there. Get the right people to do your audits for you, and become acknowledged and accepted and ahead of your competitors. IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, who just did this massive study. EPR. Do you know what EPR is? EPR means Extended Producer Responsibility. We have got to fight for this. This is where the people that create things like plastic bottles must be responsible for what happens to them in the end. And GRI is a wonderful global reporting initiative that will do all the assessments for you, do all the measurements on how to improve, and reports on your sustainability journey. Very, very good. I was very honored to be invited to COP26. It was incredible, but there were too many white men in suits. There were hardly any indigenous people. There were far more interesting people outside protesting. So I spent a lot of time with all the hippies and the weirdos and the protesters instead of inside in the boring lectures in those huge big rooms. So the carbon targets, Paris Agreement, we've got to stop the temperature rising by more than 1.5 degrees. Otherwise, we're going to die of starvation and heat stroke. And the IPCC report, which says we have to have 0 carbon emissions by the middle of, by 2050. Lorraine. And the risks to supply chain are huge. So this is what you need to start watching out for. You're going to have diseases, heat stroke, you're going to have shortages, your supply chain will have shortages. You're going to have terrible weather, your infrastructure and your transport is really going to be affected. Give me a shout and we'll run through a proper, serious study of the risks to supply chains.
Right.
And then procurement. Yeah.
I just want to tap into that. And very interesting, you bring in the two definitions of a secular and what does it mean in sustainability. I'm always finding that lots of organizations are really confusing what sustainability is and what the circular economy is. And I think for the purpose of this conversation, it has to be clear for anyone out there that is really thinking, because sometimes our thought process is around, when we're talking about the planet, we're talking about climate change. We don't necessarily understand when we say keep things the way they are, what does it really mean? Or when we say regenerate, and then when we say that change certain behaviors as well. around that. And I would want, from the layman terms perspective, everyone to understand that, Lorraine, just because you're giving an example that keep things the way they are, what does it really mean for someone out there? You've used an example of plastic as an example, the manufacturers out there. And clearly it has got a bigger impact now from both sides as a consumer, but also as a manufacturer as well. What does it really mean when you say keep things the way they are? And what does it mean when you say change things, change our behaviors, let's change our patterns? What does it really mean for anyone out there?
Yes, I know. What I'll do later on, I'm actually running a whole masterclass on those three definitions, because they actually all mean the same thing. They're very similar, but they're using them in the wrong way. The circular economy is a fascinating concept. Let me just, I'm nearly finished my slides, and then we can actually talk about that more, because that I've noticed. Sorry, I've got a frog. I sit in on millions of bloody summits now. There's something happening every single day on the internet about supply chain. 3 years ago, there was nothing. Now everybody's suddenly an expert. And so often people don't understand the jargon. They don't understand what we call geek speak, which is corporate speak, where they speak in a foreign language and use fancy words, which makes them sound clever, but they're using them wrongly. Let me just run through this and then we'll get to that. So this is how we're going to go, how all of you who are listening to me today, are going to go for sustainable procurement and your supply chain. This is a huge, big masterclass in a few slides, but I think you're getting the message, I hope. So what they're going to do usually is say, look at your carbon footprint. Everybody knows how to reduce energy. Everybody knows what to do with water. And people should know by now what to do with waste. What really worries me in my old purchasing manual is everything else. Not enough attention being paid to everything else, because everything you use every single day has an impact on the environment. And recycling plastic is a total waste of time. It is an insult to our intelligence. It is a scam. And it will never work. We support it because it creates awareness. We will do that, but it's actually got to stop. Who knows what that is? That's a coffee cup. We think it's paper. We put it in the paper bin. Meanwhile, it's lined with plastic. Who knows what that is? I wish I had Mentimeter on, because this is really fun. Those are your stretchy jeans. Once the cotton's rotted away. That never goes away. So choose the most compliant. You use your life cycle analysis. And what I'm doing in my masterclass is choosing a product, and we go through its entire history. We pretend we're holding the hand of a small child, and we explain, where did the raw materials come from? How was it transported? How was it manufactured? How was it distributed? How was it packaged? What happens when you use it? And most important, how do you get rid of it? And the whole way through, we look at things like child labor, pollution, toxins, absolutely everything. And I tell you, that little boy is going to say, gee, Dad, why did you buy this thing if you knew how it was made and where it would end up? So what you can do as professional supply chain managers, we started, when we did our first show, there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. I just knew about overfishing and deforestation and toxins. It didn't have a name. I just wanted to show people that there was a nicer way, a kinder way to do things. So we had a basic score sheet that we ticked off for our first show. Then we got a bit more sophisticated. And what you can do is take your supply evaluation that you were given when you did your diploma on choosing 3 suppliers using their key performance areas. Just change your KPIs to include eco credentials. And the strategy is very simple. Define what's wrong, measure it, improve it, control it, and then report it. You can do this yourself. Don't be overwhelmed. Do it just keep it simple. And then later on, you can get really serious and pay somebody out there to do it for you. You must look at your products and action of concern right through your value chain. Stand back and have a look and see, ask everybody, involve absolutely everybody, all the stakeholders, and say, what concerns you in our entire value chain, right through our supply chain? And then include everybody. You know, when we used to run workshops in early days in hotels or lodges, we used to ask the cleaning people to bring their families in from the villages. Everybody is interested and everybody wants to change. And then there are fantastic people. I can give you names who will do it for you. They will measure, audit, and record for you. There's a whole list of, and they pop up every single day because now there's money in it. Of course, there's money in it. And the barriers, the usual barriers are people going to say, we don't have enough money, we don't have the staff, we don't have the technology. And the benefits are enormous, especially in how you are perceived in society. Your company can actually almost get blacklisted if you aren't trying really harder. It benefits everything. It benefits you financially, environmentally, your staff benefits, everybody benefits. So that's me. That's the end of the my slide share. And then we can address specifics with Q&A. Thanks, guys.
All right, Lorraine, very interesting. I mean, you're bringing a lot of interesting concepts around sustainability and what we should be doing as a supply chain community. But if I were to ask you, and just before I even ask the questions, everyone that has logged in, if you have some questions, please just pop them on my chat box, because this concept of sustainable supply chain, I want you to understand that it's got an impact from the organizational perspective. And if you are a service provider or you're a supplier, you are in business out there, this will have a long-term impact in terms of your business, in terms of your growth, in terms of profitability as well, because organizations will start choosing the products that are supporting climate change, the products that are creating a greener economy as well, because it's very, very important. You start really thinking about it to say that how will this impact you? It's not just about everyone and Lorraine, they always think around, oh, let's look at the weather. And when they say that, oh, it's raining and it's winter, or it's cold and it's summer, it's all impacted by climate change. And I think this discussion brings back now that narrative again to say, what is it that we are doing and how are we contributing to the weather, to the climate, to having a greener economy as well. So it's very important for yourself that has logged in, please indicate that, what is your strategy? Because you have to start thinking around this now. What are you doing on both sides? And I want to hear your view, guys. What is happening in your organization? Because Lorraine is here, and we are here to help you strategize forward. So what are your questions? And Lorraine, I'm going to go on the chat box. I saw there's a question that is coming through from Josephine. And Josephine is saying that if your organization refuses to buy in your suggestion, what can the procurement professionals do? And a very important question. Thank you, Josephine, for that.
Hi, Josephine. I think, like I said at the beginning, they've got to understand why. And when I give my motivational talks, I talk very seriously about the impact on the planet. People don't really care because they see that 100 years from now. The trouble is it's happening now. So you need to show them pictures of exactly what's happening now. The weather has always been good and bad, but it is bad far more often and far worse. The fact that the Arctic is 40 degrees Celsius warmer than the average ever recorded. They record the temperatures at the poles by sending down, when they drill down into the ice. And you can drill down for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They bring up that ice and then they can test in the bubbles. They can test in the bubbles how much, whatever they want to test, pollution, carbon dioxide, methane there is in the ice through the ages. Show people the proof, the actual scientific facts. That is why a workshop on actual climate change is terribly important. And what we've done is I'm a Montessori teacher, and I thank God every day that I did that training, because I understand what burns into people's brains. It's no good just talking. It's no good having slides with bullet points. People don't remember that. You've got to get them with pictures and with emotions, and then explain to them how by the end of the century, your grandchildren, they're going to be alive. We're going to live much longer. What they're going to put up with. already this this terrible war that's going on. The thing that's going to impact us the most there is famine and starvation. That happens to be a war, but climate change is doing exactly the same thing. And for example, people don't realize in South Africa, we are getting warm much faster than the rest of the world. And what's happening, things like maize and wheat are actually not going to survive. Listen to me. The best advice you're getting today from me, the best advice, write it down now, is go and talk to the old folks. Go and find the oldest people you can and say, what can you remember that you can't find anymore? What fruits, what grains, what vegetables, what animals, our tough African chicken and African goats. Let me tell you something, they're going to survive. All these fancy breeds from Europe are not going to survive. Wheat and maize, we need to plant, all of us need to plant sorghum and millet, because that's what belongs in Africa and that's what's going to survive in Africa. So once these people that won't listen to you understand the reason why you have to do it. And then of course, what I did at Southern Sun, say I had 3 suppliers for guest amenities, for shampoos and soaps and stuff. I would just say to the guy that's got parabens and toxic chemicals in his soap, you're not going to get the contract, finished and clear, full stop. Sorry for you, this guy's getting it. And even if that guy cost more, I used to fight with the exec. In fact, I actually left the company because I got so frustrated. Sometimes you had to pay slightly more, but you don't get sick so often. So you save money there. And those products nearly always last. They go further and they're not thinned down and they last much longer than the other products. So they don't cost more. So Joe, go out there and fight and give me a shout and I'll come and fight next to you.
I think what we need to do, Josephine, it would be great. Maybe you can tell us, the products that you are dealing with and your value chain. What is it that you are focusing on as an organization? Because for me, I would want to make sure that living these sessions, that as to what you need to implement from the organization perspective. So we can just take you through the life cycle assessment as well for your specific product. And you already have, exactly what you're going to be implementing. But I want to bring one specific element, and before I go to the other questions, Lorraine, and really saying that as a procurement practitioner, one of the things that is very critical, always remember that we have to put procurement strategies. We need to have our procurement plans, our strategies in place that are informing sustainable supply chain practices. That's the one element that is very critical. So wherever you are in your organization, start doing that analysis of why it matters for your supply chain to connect your customers with products and services that are really eliminating and reducing costs to the environment. How do we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions? So I think that discussion is very critical as part of putting strategies in your organization. And one advice that I can also give to yourself, Josephine, because and it would be good just to get to understand your products. When you look at sustainable supply chain practices, you need to be able to inform your organization as to how the process that you are following will reduce the environmental impact. Very important. And really indicating that when you reduce waste and increasing efficiency in terms of whatever equipment you're building, you can quickly see returns in that organization. How does it really improve continuity of supply? Because what happens is that now when you look at your strategy, the second thing is, how do you as a procurement professional improve continuity of supply in your organization? Because what you are doing now is bringing also innovation in your organization. So you are diversifying your supply chain to avoid this over-reliance on one single link in your chain, because it's one of the areas. Because right now, if you look at the cases in the industry, we've always been having the similar suppliers who are unable to fulfill certain changes or requirements in the organization. So it already has got a knock-on effect for other businesses. The third one that you want to incorporate in terms of your strategy and really influencing the organization is around reputational damage. Right now, the funders, the investors out there, they're looking for organizations that cares about the planet. That's what they are looking for. And when you look at reputational damage, the impact of your products in a long term around the value chain is one of the things that needs to be put forward in terms of your strategy. The fourth one is that if you really care around sustainability, you can forge new partnerships in the industry. This one is very obvious because a business with a sustainable supply chain is very attractive to prospective companies that wants to partner with this and really doing, because we're always fighting for health. We look at farming, we look at how we really having improvement on the products, on the equipment. The last one is really around business, more returns. And when you're talking about more returns, when you start looking at the green credentials, I think we know around the climate change and the carbon tax already that has been paid by organization. So I'm just bringing these 5 items for you as procurement professionals out there to say what are the things that you incorporate in your procurement strategy and how you ensure that from the organizational perspective, you are able to inform and really push them towards compliance and really supporting your sustainable, procurement initiatives or supply chain initiatives in totality. So Josephine, I hope it helps. If you can just share on your side, your industry, the product. So anyone out there, if you have any product that you want to propose that we can really look at, then we can look at the life cycle costs, assessment in terms of it, and how it's really impacting the climate. I think Lorraine will be able to take us through that. Lorraine, you gave us an example. I mean, you showed us a cup and a foam cup. You've shown us that. You've showed us the plastic bottles. You've shown us so many things in the jeans as well, something that I did not even expect. I'm shocked looking at that picture, by the way. So, and that's the reality, something that we do not see at the end of our value chain. So Lorraine, I think you can proceed. Yeah.
So many of our clothes are stretchy now. And you're buying plastic every time. And every time you buy recycled plastic, like your fleece jacket, that's plastic. Don't buy it. It's plastic. And what's happening, those microfibers, when you wash it, are breaking off in the laundry and end up in the river, ending up in the sea. Fish are eating it. We're eating those fish. I mean, you can, my baby swallowed a pearl from my necklace. It came through. I could pick it up later on. The difference is the plastics are absorbing toxic metals, which natural things, pearls and other things that a kid may swallow, don't. So that's one of the dangers of ingesting plastic, is it's poisoning us. Yeah, all the stuff you spoke about, I've actually got the list on my other computer here. That's all in my masterclass. That sort of detail. I mean, I didn't go through it in my presentation here. And I was going to say something else about make it easy. Make it easy. If you've got a supplier who's resistant, give it to him. It's like when you want to be featured in a magazine, give them the pictures, give them the text, give them everything, and they'll just copy and paste it into the magazine. So tell them exactly what you want. Tell them in your standards and the criteria in your tender document. Say, we do not want ABCD, and we would really like if you did ABCD. And what I used to do at Southern Sun, I could not find a green bed. I'm still struggling to find a green bed in South Africa. A bed is quite a big thing. And the greenest one is from Scandinavia. It costs a fortune, but it's 100% eco-friendly, and it's guaranteed for a whole lifetime. What I used to do is one supplier would phone me and say, hey, I've got a green bed. So I'd say, hey, what? I've got a bamboo cover. And I'd go, hey, terrific, well done. I would put him on the green stuff register, but I would say it's only the cover. And then what would happen? His competitor would say, oh my goodness me, look what this bed company is doing. I better do the green cover, the bamboo cover plus something else. And slowly they start competing with each other. And that reputational damage, as Lebo so rightly said, is going to get more and more. Lebo, is that you or is that Rose?
It was myself. Yes, it's Lebo.
Yeah, I know. I could mix up with the names on the face there. So already, Coca-Cola is getting more and more unpopular. Unilever getting more, because people aren't stupid. People can actually see through all these claims. This new thing about zero carbon. It's nonsense. Most of it is absolute what we call greenwashing. You can't go and plant 20 trees and then still carry on polluting and say you net zero. So they've got to actually stop the polluting. But it does. I keep saying it doesn't matter. People are becoming aware. There's a chap here asking about the truck emissions. It's a massive problem. You know, our railway system used to be fantastic. And I used to travel I love trains. I used to travel everywhere by train that I possibly could. We have got to fight the government to get the rail infrastructure back up again. A, the trucks are ruining the roads. B, they're emitting. Obviously, we should be going electric, but also just have very, very efficient logistics. Just make sure you haven't got empty trucks coming back from somewhere. That's the circular economy. See if there's somebody in that neighborhood who needs to bring stuff back after you've delivered, and get involved in these wonderful databases that follow where the trucks are and what they're carrying. But it's a massive problem, you're quite right. And this one that says, how can we measure environmental performances of our suppliers? I shouldn't be promoting companies. What I'll bring up a slide just now, I'll look for it, of people, they're people every day. Just Google, what do you want to call it, supply auditors or measurements or metrics or something like that, and see who comes up. One of the big ones is the one I said, there's the the GRI. There's another one called Economies. I'll look for it and then I'll bring the slide up for you just now. But don't pay people. Start by doing it yourself. And just remember, look at all the worst. What are the worst things? The worst thing is wasting energy and polluting. The second thing is water. South Africa has a massive water problem. We've been worried about that for nearly 50 years. The third thing is, for me, is deforestation. That breaks my heart, and it's happening in the Congo far worse than we realize, and of course the Amazon. Those are our lungs. Child labor, forced labor, pollution. Bear all those things in mind, and then go on a walkabout. Just sit down with your team around a table, go on a walk down through your value chain and say, what happens over there? What is impacted the whole way through? And things will jump out at you. And so often they're really easy. Just go back to that person and say, you know, we're a bit concerned about whatever it is. And then say, you know, if there's a competitor, you play them against each other and say that we really would like you to work with us, and explain why.
Okay, I think one of the things, and what Kilabofile is talking about, and very critical, and I'm just thinking from the supply chain perspective, Lorraine, a couple of years ago, if you remember with Transnet, there was that road to rail migration strategy. And the idea of the road to rail migration strategy was also to reduce the emissions on the road that are attributed by the trucks. However, I think it was recognized as well from the shippers out there that not everything can go on the rail, especially when you look at the locomotives, looking at the wagons, the availability, and so forth. And basically not everything can really be put on rail. I think that's the one area, but the question always comes back to say now, when you have trucks that are remaining on the road, what strategies implemented by the manufacturers out there? We have the big manufacturers of trucks that needs to make sure that we reduce the emissions in the industry. And I think that's where Kilabofile is coming from, to say that, you know what, green transport is imminent. I'm keen to pursue, but what are the trends out there? What is happening? Because I would really want to be part of it. I know Kilabofile is one of the, the ladies that's part of the trucking sessions that we have in the industry when you talk about logistics and so on, and I understand where she is coming from. I want to also bring another example where we know that these driverless trucks that we know from other countries. Tell me, what are your thoughts around these driverless trucks now? You know, whilst on the point of Kilabofile.
You know this, I love being my age. I tell you, I love it. When my first husband, I've had a few husbands. My first husband was a very, very clever design engineer. He worked in the aerospace industry eventually, but when we lived in California, he worked for a trucking company called RHOR Industries. Before that, he worked for Chrysler. And they asked those engineers to go home to the wives, who were nobody in those days. This was before women's liberation and feminism, and asked them for an idea on how to get from A to B without a driver. I thought it was so clever, because women often don't think like an engineer. We think we think out of the box. We have crazy, mad brainstorming ideas. And that's how long it's taken, 50 years, and we only got them now. I think it's great. I think especially for things like trucks, to have special areas, special lanes for them so they don't crash into pedestrians and private vehicles. I think it's a fantastic idea. They can all be electric. And I think one day we're going to have things like charging through the tarmac, so you don't have to keep charging at stuff like that, and let them just get on with it. But, think beyond that. The women here, I'm sure, really are thinking like that. Why are you transporting this stuff all over the place? One of the things that upset me the most at Southern Sun when I first joined them, which was probably about 30 years ago, most of our beautiful linen used to come from Moy River, lots of it from Zimbabwe, all locally made. We grew the cotton locally manufactured, good quality, and slowly, the hotel started ordering from China and Pakistan and Bangladesh, and the quality went down, the prices went down, and the factory started closing. So I honestly and truly believe a lot of people pay more for a better quality local product than this imported rubbish. So go for local. And, we need employment. All those people can be brought back into the factories. The factories are still there, and make stuff here.
Yeah, indeed. Now let's. I think Michael is asking more questions around performance management. So I think one question that was coming earlier from Josephine was around how organizations are not supporting sustainability initiatives. But on the flip side, if I am a procurement person and there is everyone that has buy-in on that sustainability strategy for the organization, you're expecting the service providers that you are working with to be able to comply. So the question is, what will be those metrics? How are we supposed to be measuring the suppliers? Because it's one of the things that is out there and it's never been done. So I think the question is, what should we really be considering now from the sustainability metrics perspective to say that label, you are supplying us with plastic bottles, not plastic bottles, with water, maybe start saving water, in some mud, bottle kind of. I mean, I've seen a couple of exciting examples out there in the industry as to people becoming creative as to how you reuse items, recycle, and how you ensure that you move away from all these products. So how will the sustainability matrix look like for a procurement professional? I think that's the question. I mean, I sit on one of the organizations, Lorraine, IBIS Consulting. I sit on the board of that organization, and one of the things that they are doing, they are measuring sustainability for other, and especially for listed companies. And I'm seeing that the companies that are not listed, it's one of the, those are some of the organizations that are not necessarily interested, on sustainability. From the perspective. So from the criteria perspective, what is it that we should be measuring as procurement professionals? So what is it that organizations should start measuring from the supplier side?
Yeah, but that is where the specialist will work with you because everybody's different. And every product is very, very, very different. Yeah. And every area is different. When we did, I used to be a judge for green hotels, for example. It depends where the hotel is. A hotel in the Kruger National Park, the things that are important to that hotel are entirely different to Intercontinental in Sandton. So the range is so vast. That's where the specialists come in, and they'll sit with you and see, define your biggest challenges. What is most important to you financially? What is most important to you reputationally? And then start focusing on those and then measure them. Things like water and energy are really easy to measure. Yes. And the rest is, again, bring in everybody, collaborate, put them all in and have great big Zoom chats and say, come up with some ideas. This is our problem. And they will start also thinking of the entire value chain. And sometimes we have found look for the champion. And very often the champion can be quite a junior employee, strangely, but he's the one with passion. Work through that person, and then they escalate the motivation. They escalated the decision to the decision makers. Don't go for the poor old CEO all the time. Usually he's somewhat of a psychopath anyway to be the CEO. And then I have to say, most of them are just so focused on money and profit. So use the people who understand and have got the passion and the motivation to do it. And as I said, make everybody decision makers, make everybody be creative, out of the box thinkers, and start small. I've just found this. Hold on a minute. I'm going to try and quickly find this slide with some of the people that do this work. When you send your survey out, use these people, SurveyMonkey and stuff. Think of a bunch of questions for you. Also Google for some ideas of what kind of questions should I ask my value chain around sustainability. Send out the SurveyMonkey, because you also want to know what they're thinking. No good you telling them what to do. You need to first listen to what they're worried about. And here, take a picture of this slide. Here are some of the GRI. I said One Planet is fantastic. They're quite new. That will do all this work for you or give you a template to use. CSR, corporate responsibility. Every company has a division. And I've been running talks on the sustainability, which they don't get right. Eco-riders are growing by the day, absolutely enormous, and the others. So just Google for advice on on who does this sort of auditing for you. Yeah, and it's not complicated. It sounds, you hear Michael says, based on experience, certainly sustainability criteria are now built in, definitely, to supply. It becomes one of your key performance areas where they've got to be able to tick their management of their water, energy, waste, and then you can go on through to the toxins and the whatever else, the labor, the forests, is all the wood in their product certified, that sort of thing. And become an expert in your product. There's a website called Drawdown, and there's a website called Tree Hugger. If you're interested in cell phones, Google what's in a cell phone. The sustainability and the greening websites, ask them, and you'll be amazed. And they'll tell you, you don't have to do that. All the work's done for you. When you order a cell phone, ask these questions. The top one, of course, for cell phone, is it modular? If something breaks, can I take it apart and get a new part and put it in, rather than like with Apple having to throw it away and buy a new phone every year?
You're really planting a seed in our minds, Lorraine, around each and every product that we are using. And that ultimately it's got a bigger impact. I mean, it's just a reverse. It's a cycle. What you eat, what you consume, where does it end up and how it impacts the environment, how we make decisions as well in the industry. But now talking about the industry and looking at the economy as a whole, and for me, that's one of my last comments and my last question. I want to understand, what is your view? I mean, we had 11 economic sectors in our country, as an example, in South Africa, ranging from manufacturing, look at transportation, look at the mining and the banking, the finance sector. Which one is really, driving the right behaviors in terms of sustainability, according to you? Do you think that the finance or the finance sector is focusing more on sustainability measures? Do you think manufacturing is improving? And if any or some of those sectors, and if you can just probably give us an example on one or two economic sectors, what is it that they should be considering, with really implementing this sustainable goals?
That's great. I'm not an economist, but I do watch all the time because I'm so critical. I think maybe manufacturing are waking up, mostly not because they're goody two shoes and altruistic, because their customers are demanding. are demanding greener, more friendly, eco-friendly products. I think agriculture in South Africa is an absolute disgrace, absolute criminal disgrace. The fact that we have got genetically modified corn, 80% of our maize are our millies. It doesn't matter about the millie being genetically modified. We know that's debatable. I mean, it's still food. It's nothing about food security. Don't believe a word they tell you. And they're moving into Africa like a Trojan horse, looking as though they're looking after food security. What they're actually doing, they want to sell the chemicals that you have to spray those crops with, because those crops are what they call Roundup resistant. They don't die when you spray them with this exfoliating chemical. Everything else does except that plant. So that's got to stop. It's poisoning the river. There are cases in America now where Monsanto and Bayer are paying out billions of dollars to the workers who've got cancer. And here in South Africa, it's banned in 30 other countries. We still use it here on the rugby fields and on the maize. So agriculture is disgrace. What has surprised me is the mining industry. I got phoned to speak to one of the biggest mines in the country. And I said, but I can't talk to you. I'm going to tell you to stop using coal. And he said to me, Mrs. Jenks, we dig up the coal. We don't burn it, we only dig it up. But it was one of the greenest conferences I've ever been to in my career. It was unbelievable. And they don't talk about it so much. Slowly, they're selling off their coal. They're closing their coal, and they're starting to build factories to make wind turbines, solar panels, photovoltaic equipment. So I think the mining industry it's a dark horse. It's doing more than it's letting us know. So thank goodness. I just wish Uncle Grady would just retire and go and live with his family. I mean, he's a sweet man. He's just a bit old, you know.
Oh, Lorraine. Oh yes, I think there's improvement that's coming our way from the mining. I've also had some few conversations around it, but I think also the finance sector, the insurance, specifically the insurance industry. I think they're waking up to understand sustainability measures and really driving such in their initiatives as well. I think it's one of the sectors that on the finance side that is really now starting to drive that. I think also the banks I always look at Nedbank, what it does with their green initiatives as well.
They're funding the agricultural sector. They're funding all those poisons.
So it's not necessarily, it's just being green, but not necessarily green. Greenwash, like you were saying. All right. I can see there is one question from Toba, and then he said that there is this on the social media that petrol made out of plastic waste. Is this true, and how can I get more information on that? So it's a question to say she's probably seen that on the social media around petrol being made out of plastic waste. Is that the truth?
Yeah, there's a lot being happening on that. My son is a physicist, and I always ask his advice on these things. The danger is people say, oh, goody, we can get rid of plastic, so we can continue buying plastic. So it makes us think it's okay to start to keep making more plastic. And it's not as green as it's made out to be. It has emissions. It's still plastic. You still have to burn it. It's a short-term solution because it gets rid of some of the plastic, but it's certainly not what you could use as part of your net zero criteria for your ESG standards. Yeah, just be careful. People don't forget the oil industry are behind anything that looks like a solution for plastic. If you drill down, even the biggest recycling companies, drill down to who actually really owns them and who's pushing this initiative. It's the oil industry to try and keep plastic relevant.
I agree with that. You make plastic out of polymer. So if you look at polyethylene and all of those, polymer on its own, that's what you use as a chemical into making plastic. And you have different types of plastics waste out there. And I agree with you, Lorraine, on that one. We have to be careful about it. There is, let's see a comment, that in the service industry, like NGOs, how do we apply sustainability? These are very important. This very important, well-informed session. Wider audience will have been great as well. So what they are saying is that it is a very important, discussion, because we need to really apply this in the service industry. But unfortunately, people are not taking sustainability seriously, which is the truth, Josephine. We really, really want to make sure that there's a wider audience that understand these dialogues. And I'll have to be honest, with you, Lorraine, and anyone and everyone that's listening. When I look at South Africa, when I look at Africa, these conversations around sustainability are not taken seriously. And I'm seeing that the push towards wider conferences, wider conversations. I speak with a lot of procurement practitioners, supply chain practitioners out there. When you're talking about sustainability, they do not know what am I talking about. They just know the name sustainability, things of climate change, not really understanding the impact of their decisions at procurers, as people that buy or making decisions in the organization, while how their decisions are impacting the planet. That most of the people are not, engaging in these discussions. And I think, Josephine, that's one of the reasons we have Lorraine right now, because we're going to start having one conversation after another, so that we can stimulate this and we can have more wider audience that is really focused to start implementing those sustainable practices in the industry. So Lorraine, I mean, you've been involved on COP19, you have been involved outside South Africa. Don't you think, I'm giving you my view around the industry, that I'm not seeing much of those conversations.
No, Lebo, but you're not alone. It's not, South Africa they need to know the basics. This is why I've moved away from training the way I used to train. I actually now cover the fundamentals, the basic principles of why we have to do it, exactly for these people, because they haven't been shown in school. And I got this call from Azerbaijan last week to go. They actually flew me I didn't even know where it was. I had to quickly Google it to see where it was. And it was the supply chain people who invited me to speak at this big summit. There were 400 people there. They knew nothing about climate change. It's not just South Africa. That's because the industry is oil-based. They've got massive oil reserves in the Caspian Sea. So we're not alone. Often the old folks are far more aware, because that's how they used to live, and they are appalled the way the kids live. But the new young middle class that are coming up, it's not that they're delinquent and bad, it's they don't know. They don't know. And I think once they start actually realizing that they're responsible for their children's future, it's like us about apartheid. People come out to us oldies and say, what did you do during apartheid? They're going to say to the youngsters today, when they're grown up, their kids are going to say to them, Mommy, Daddy, what did you do? You knew what was going on, so there's, and the trouble is, even I do a lot of work with Greenpeace. So everybody who's listening here, join Greenpeace Africa and join the African Climate Reality Program. And you can do the training with Al Gore, it's free. And you can become a specialist in climate change and understand climate change. The trouble is, those people, they do really great work, but what do they focus on? They focus on picking up plastic litter and recycling it. That's not climate change. They've got to, we can't even mitigate. The trouble is, Africa is going to suffer really badly with climate change, and we did not cause it. So to tell South Africans to stop using so much electricity, and we aren't the ones causing it. What we have to do here is actually worry about preparing and adapting. We've got to survive this lot. We've got to do what we can to mitigate. To mitigate means to reduce it and stop it. But we've actually got to focus on the future and what we have to start doing now. We've got to change the way our cities are built for the drought that's coming, the floods that are coming, the terrible weather that's coming. Every home's got to have two kinds of pantries. It's got to have a pantry for if you get stuck in the house, or if you've got to get out because there's a hurricane. These are the things and people say it's not going to happen to me. It's happened to me on one night only. I was in a monster storm in Cape Town where we couldn't leave our hotel and people could not walk in the streets because they've been blown over. They came into the hotel to spend the night on the floor. And the airplanes couldn't take off and the cars couldn't drive. And one night, that same night, my friend's house burned down in Knysna when they had their forest fire. Those are climate change, things caused by climate change. It sounds so depressed. You know, if we really pull together, it can happen. This is why we have COP. COP27 is in Africa this year. It's in Egypt. I'm going to go. And this year, I think people were very, very cross at COP26 because the indigenous people weren't included and the youth were not included. I think that won't happen again. And I think this time, the COP is actually going to have very positive results.
I agree with you. I'm seeing that transition, Lorraine, and the interest also from the youth that has got the drive to make sure that we do things right.
Yes.
For me, I think it's very critical, and I think we're making some traction around that. So, guys, I'm not sure who else has got questions out there. I just want to check if there are any other questions, Lorraine, coming from everyone here. I don't see any more questions now, but what I'm seeing is that, you know, we need to have more of these conversations, you know, from the industry perspective, because we are not really focusing much on sustainability, and you're bringing this reality forward to us. And like you're saying, that we have to adapt. And, you know, I use an example of most of us, you shop at Woolworths as an example. You know, Woolworths and a couple of other shops now, they are forced to stop using plastic bags. Now you have to buy those recyclable bags, and then you don't have to using plastic bags. Number one, think around straw, guys. The straws that we've always seen in the sea and piled up there. A decision has been made now that we're not using plastic straws anymore. We hate those paper straws, but I think right now we are already used to them. So what we are saying that some of these decisions need to be forced upon people, or else we are not going to change. We need to adapt. We need to be innovative and bring in solutions to the industry if we really want to save the climate. So with that, Lorraine, what are your last words, last questions? And everyone else who's got questions, you can still put your last questions on the chat box. My conversations with Lorraine will continue in the next few months, because we want to make sure that people start understanding what sustainability is and understanding yourself as an organization, yourself as a decision maker, yourself as a procurement person, yourself as a manufacturer, understanding what right decisions to make out there and advocating towards doing the right things. That's exactly what we want. So Lorraine, any last words from your side?
My last words are, once you know, you can't ever unknow. And let me just warn these people, because they're here, because they're the right people, the people who are listening to us today. Let me just warn you, this becomes addictive. It becomes so damn interesting that every time you look at something, you say to yourself, this cheese, God, I wonder where this cheese comes from, which farm it is. I wonder if the animals are fed organic food, or if they're given corn from the toxic fields in South Africa. See, how is it manufactured? How is it preserved? Every item, once you start researching every day, you start looking up stuff, and it's fascinating. It's so fascinating. Yeah, so go and do the good work. You are the future, you kids. You're all young. You are the future. You've got work to do.
Okay. Lorraine, thank you so much. I will be checking any questions, any comments on Facebook and LinkedIn, and we can still respond on them afterwards. And for the purpose of the Zoom live session with everyone that has joined here, thank you guys. Those that are on LinkedIn and Facebook, I will check your comments and we'll still revert back to yourself if you have any questions. Again, Lorraine, on yourself, thank you so much. I can see there is questions around your details on how to join the Greenpeace that you mentioned. If you see on the chat box, Lorraine has put in her details on the chat box, guys, on LinkedIn, how to connect with her as well. Like I said, guys, we will definitely be having more conversations with Lorraine. We want to advocate towards making the right decisions and really driving this sustainable global goal, the SDGs out there. We want to make sure that we do the right things, we take the right decisions as an organization. Join us on our next sessions that we will be arranging with Lorraine. Lorraine, again, thank you so much for your passion. I mean, if there's one person that I've ever met in my life that has got a passion and has been driving sustainability, is yourself. Thank you so much for your energy and bringing this and enlightening us on what we should be focusing on the industry. Let us build sustainable supply chain practices, guys. Thank you so much for logging in. It's an interesting subject. If you're still wondering, please read all about it and you understand how important this is for me and for yourself and the future generations as well. Thank you so much. Have yourself, guys, a very good day. Thank you, Lorraine. We chat again.
Thanks, Lebo. Thanks, Rose. Thanks, Lebo. Thanks, everybody. Lovely to meet you all. Stay in touch.